So, do we have any kind of role in the energy of darkness? What about evil or even evil spirits? If you want to hear a little bit more about some intuitive insights I've received from communication with spirits on the other side and astrological travel and seeing into the spirit world, I invite you to stay tuned and keep an open mind during this episode. Welcome back. My name is Angie, and I'm an intuitive life coach, and I bring intuitive messages I receive in my spirit to you to help you align with your highest and true self so that you can live your purpose and release all the ego's programming and finally feel free in this life. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about something I wrote in my book, Composting the Ego. You can see a copy of it right here. I have a copy right here in my hand. Let me just share this part. The more programmed we are, the more separate we feel from our true self. Disconnecting from the spirit, we develop an inner conflict between our ego and spirit, cultivating more and more of an energetic barrier between our consciousness and subconscious mind. Any trauma we experience adds to even more disconnection from our true self, causing us to experience and see the world around us through a lens of pain, abandonment, fear, or shame, which informs our behaviors. The programming we develop is directly related to the energies of those around us. We energetically align with them so as to fit in with them and manifest lifestyles that appear similar. We may even acquire the same type of home, dress, or speak the same. A child's survival depends on fitting in with their tribe and family. And we fear that if we don't, we become an outcast. We take this habit with us into our adult lives because we are also influenced by the world around us in this way. We don't notice how we become a part of it. This is just one example of how easily our mind and ego can be programmed to become a part of the world around us. In my book, Composting the Ego, the sixth chapter is called Darkness. And if you have followed me at all, you know that I am a deconstructed Christian. And so I come from a array of ideas of what darkness is. Before my awakening, which happened in 2016, I had many experiences in my life where I felt evil things or I sensed them. I even saw dark spirits, which I assumed were demons. And that's what I was told as well by those I was around. Because I had put myself in a place of being influenced by a dogma and a religion, that was the teaching that I received for these scenarios and situations that I experienced. So when I would see a dark spirit or I would experience an energy in my life, I suddenly would automatically go in my brain to this is demonic. But also, I went to why? Why am I attracting this? Why is this coming towards me? Now that I'm awakened and I have done much healing in my life, I understand this on a whole new level. One, I'm not afraid of spirits any longer. However, I am careful about what spirit I invite into my life or I allow to speak to me, because there are spirits that are in darkness, but it is not hell. And if you are in a place where you still believe in a place called hell, you're probably not going to like this episode. So I have come to understand that there is no such thing as hell. And the way I know this is directly speaking with spirits, as well as my own study. And basically, during meditations, I am able to travel into the spirit world. My spirit has had many moments of moving into the spiritual realm and understanding what it feels like and what exactly we come from. One of the stories I share in my first book is a story that I had when I was meditating one time, and how I suddenly found myself in a very bright room. This room was so bright, it was completely white. I could not even see an inch in front of me. It was just white. However, I could sense I was in a room. I knew I was in a room. And I also knew that right behind me to my right was a wooden chair. I wasn't sure where I was or why I was there, but suddenly all of this light around this room exposed windows. And from the outside of this room, a brighter white light came. And I would not have known I was in this room had this brighter light not illuminated the windows around me. And then suddenly to my left, a door opened, and this door exposed even more light. I became curious, and so without hesitation or thinking, I grabbed the wooden chair beside me and I walked to the door. When I got to the door, something really interesting happened. I unzipped my body and I stepped out of it, and I put my body on the chair as if it was a piece of clothing. And I turned to walk out the door into the brighter lightness than what I was already in. And when I took that first step out into that brightness, I was overwhelmed with a feeling of love. There's a lot of people that have had these experiences and talk about how they cannot explain the feeling of this. There really are no words in the human language to describe this place that we may call heaven. And I believe that is what I experienced, at least a very tiny part of it. I was so overwhelmed with this feeling of love that I wanted to keep going into this light because it just felt amazing. I didn't want to leave. I never wanted to leave this place. However, as I started to walk forward, I heard a voice say, "No, you were only supposed to experience this feeling, but you need to go back." Of course, I was disappointed, but I took that as the spirit, my guide, or maybe God telling me that it wasn't my time to leave my body yet. So I came back, and I have not forgotten that experience. It completely changed my life. But when you have an experience like that, you begin to wonder, so if this is what it's like in heaven or in the spiritual realm, then where does darkness come from? And why do we experience so much of it here on earth? And as I began my study and exploration and meditations and asking my guides to share with me, I began to get more and more insight. And a lot of the insight came from my own father, who passed 2.5 years ago, that has come back to share quite a bit with me about what it's like to be on the other side. And the interesting thing is, the one thing that he continues to remind me over and over is that the only thing that matters is love. And so if love is all that matters, why is there so much pain? Why is there so much trauma? Why is there this energy of darkness that we have to fight? And I want to share a little bit in the short time that we have about why that might be. I've come to realize that without contrast, without yin and yang, without darkness and light, there is no expansion, there is no growth, there's no ability to see light without darkness. And because we come from such a beautiful, magnificent place, such as the one I just talked about within the light, where it's completely love and there is no human word to describe it. The only way that we would really truly know that feeling is to experience darkness. And so in many ways, we humans come to Earth to experience darkness, to see the difference between where we're from and what it might feel like to be disconnected from it. However, we are never fully disconnected from our true self, from our spirit, from this energy, from the love, from the God that we are created from the universe. And when I say God, I'm not talking about the religious God that we have come to know here on this planet. I'm not talking about a God that judges and hates and wants to control people. That is not what this being is. This being is a pure energy of love and light, and I have also seen it, and that is also in my book. I believe I probably even shared an episode on that. So, why darkness then? Why is this the only way to really understand the light? And I've come to understand that in many ways, we are the energy of God. We are God. We are the I am experiencing itself. The I am is placing itself in lower energies and frequencies to experience different contrast in order to expand itself and grow. And this is why the universe is constantly creating and expanding and growing. We are always finding new things in the astros. We are always finding new galaxies. We are finding new stars. We're finding so many things that we once did not realize were there. I remember when I was younger, there were only so many planets, and now we've added multiple more. We've also discovered other galaxies. Now, I can't speak on that. I don't know how that plays into all this. However, I have come to understand that the darkness that we experience is part of that expansion, because the contrast of the light and darkness allows the expansion to happen. And so in many ways, this is a privilege to be here on Earth at this time, experiencing this energy, because we are a part of expanding God. We are a part of expanding this energy that we are. And in the darkness, we see our light. And when we go back to the other side, to the place that I was talking about in the light, is when we expose all that darkness inside of us. And we look back and we see our lives in a different way. We see our lives not just from our perspective that we lived as that human. We see it as the perspective of everything and anybody around us as well. We will feel the things that other people feel when we hurt them. We will feel the things that other people feel when they feel loved. We will feel the way animals feel when they're around us. We will feel the way trees feel. The planet, we will feel it all. And it feels like a big responsibility to keep track of when you look at it that way. However, it's also a huge privilege, and we're doing this on purpose. So when we experience things such as darkness here on this earth, because everything is a reflection of energy and everything is energy, we are actually experiencing the darkness that we hold within ourselves. That is reflecting back to us. Now, I want to be really careful about this, because I fully understand that there are very, very dark and evil things in this world. Things such as trauma and people being hurt by one another. And things seem to be getting worse as of lately. And I am not going to say that it's not horrible and that it shouldn't stop. It absolutely should. And we are not here to do that. However, our darkness has taken over in many ways inside of us, and we were deflecting and reflecting that onto one another. And that is why there's so much discord and pain in this earth right now, because For thousands to millions of years, humans have continued to cycle the energy of darkness around, placing blame on one another, causing separation, judgment, hate, harming one another, and in that evil energy continue to cycle the darkness, which creates more. In many ways, the darkness that we fight against is the darkness in our own selves. And once we begin to see that in ourselves, we begin to understand the world around us a little bit more. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about demons? What about spirits? What about that kind of stuff? And that's a whole nother subject that I can get into sometimes. However, I've come to understand that there is not a such thing as demons in the aspect of what we believe, because we have made that up to place blame on, basically, for our behaviors, for the way the world is. And instead of taking responsibility for the darkness that we hold within us, we place it on something outside of us. And that's why healing and deconstructing the ego and letting go of the programming that we've had in our lives is so very important, because when we let go of who we've been taught to be, just like I read in my book since childhood, we find who we really are. And who we really are is that light I was just talking about, that abundant love and light that I experienced. And so underneath all this energy of pain and darkness and whatever way that manifests into your life, it could be anxiety, it could be fear, it could be lack, it could be relationship problems, it could be all kinds of things. And I know these are really, really hard, and I don't want to make small of these things. But I also know that there is a possibility to heal. And I also know that not everybody wants to heal, and not everybody wants to face some of these things that cause darkness in their life, because the ego is very, very, very tough to overcome. And once the ego gets its fix on something, it wants to continue to go back to it. And that's why addiction is so hard to break, because the ego learns what feels good and what doesn't. And even if it's destructive to the body and the mind and relationships, the ego will continue to cycle that same negative, dark energy in itself, because in some way it protects it. In some way it allows it to feel safe. And when you put light in darkness, it exposes wounds, and it exposes areas of us that we don't like to look at. And so what happens when you continue to pile something on top of itself? It gets bigger. So many of us that have held these energies in us for a very long time, or we've been through something very, very hard, or we continue to experience the same cycles in our lives. In many ways, that is the energy of darkness recycling and building in our bodies and in our energy field. And we may attract situations into our lives based on that energy. Now, I don't want to leave you feeling hopeless about this, because it's absolutely 100% possible to heal this and to let this go. I'm not going to say it's easy though, because it's not. And I have been doing it myself for quite a while. And what's interesting about the energy of trauma and darkness and all these things that we have stored in our body is a lot of it's not our fault, because many of the things happened early in our lives before age of 7. But everything after, as we continue to grow into adults, have been our choice in many ways. But I don't say that as a blame. I say that as simply we didn't know. And we may not understand why things happen or how to stop them. And that's why becoming aware and shining the light in these areas is so important. I have this belief, and I've come to understand that each of us are our own healers. We have this ability to heal within our own selves because we are spirit. We are the energy of love. We are that light. However, we also are in a very, very dense, low, dark energy here on earth. And therefore, we need each other to help heal. And without that, sometimes it can feel really overwhelming to face this darkness that we hold. So if that is you and you want support and help to release that darkness, I do have healing courses and I offer healing support to open and expose these areas, but then refill it with the light of who you really are. But I also understand that it is something you have to want, because the energy in us is so very strong sometimes that it pulls us back without notice, or maybe we feel more comfortable in the darkness than we do in the light, which is okay, because the reality of it is each of us are going to go back to that same place of love. And there's not really anything that can keep us from that except for the choice of not doing it. Even in our spirit, we have a choice when we get to the other side to move into the light. And that's why there are stuck spirits, because they have made a choice to stay in a low energy of darkness. And like I said, that's a whole nother topic, but I hope this gives a little bit of insight of the energy of darkness and where it might come from, and release some of the fear that comes from dogma or religion of a place called hell or demons. Because simply it is an energy field that we can clear and heal. And if we choose so, it is very possible. And I am proof of that. Okay, I am going to wish you all the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.